After crawling for what seemed like a long time under his bed, Jack suddenly found himself in the middle of a jungle. He rolled out from under the big rock that he found himself under, and he looked around, and he was sitting in the middle of what looked like a rainforest or something. How did he get here? He started walking around the jungle, but before long, he looked up and saw a bear standing in his path, staring right at him. And this was not the friendly bear who gave him a ride home the day before. This was an absolutely ginormous bear with big, sharp teeth, and it was drooling all over the place. The bear lifted its head and looked right at Jack. And then it started growling loudly, and it started walking toward him. Jack screamed and started running away. But as he was running, he could hear the bear running after him. And before long, he realized he was running up a hill. And he lifted his head and looked up and saw there was a huge mountain in front of him. And he had already started running up it. There was nowhere else to go. Running up this mountain was the only way to get away from that bear. So he kept running and climbing higher and higher until he reached the tree line. The tree line is when the mountain gets so high that trees can't grow anymore, and the trees just stop. And right when he got to this point, he stopped and he heard a noise. And he looked back and saw that the bear was still chasing after him. Jack ran to the nearest tree he could find and he started climbing up to the top. And he noticed that the leaves on this tree were huge. They were bigger than any leaves he had ever seen back at home. And then he thought to himself, I wonder if I could fold one of these leaves up into a huge paper airplane, kind of like I did with Dad yesterday. Maybe I could even fly myself out of here. So he grabbed a leaf that was so big, it was at least 3 times the size of himself. It was huge, and it wasn't easy. But he worked hard and he folded and folded and folded some more until he actually did it. There was a full-size airplane made out of this giant leaf. Who'd have thought that was even possible? And his timing couldn't have been better because right when he finished that plane, the giant mean bear had started climbing up the tree. And it was just a few feet away from swiping at Jack with its giant claws. Jack quickly set his new airplane right between 2 branches at the top of the tree, and he jumped inside, and then right as the bear was about to take him out, Jack leaned forward in his plane until it fell right out of the top of the tree. And so Jack and the airplane were falling and falling until they were just about to smash into the ground below. And then Jack quickly pulled back on the nose of the plane when he was just inches above the ground, and it tilted up and he flew high into the air. And that plane tilted back and flew high into the air. Jack could see for miles in every direction. He was flying way above the trees now. It was the most beautiful and dangerous thing he had ever seen. And then he realized that the plane was starting to fall again. Oh no! He had to get his plane under control and figure out where to land this thing. So he grabbed the front of the plane and he glided slowly to the left and then back to the right. But he was losing altitude and he didn't even know where he was going. He started to panic and didn't know what to do when suddenly he spotted something out of the corner of his eye. It was the bear, not the mean one that was trying to eat him. It was the nice bear who was supposed to be sleeping in his room, who had crawled under his bed just a little while ago and led Jack to this jungle in the first place. So Jack pointed his plane for the bear, who was just sitting there smiling at him, and it was like the bear had just been sitting there waiting for Jack this whole time. Jack was getting closer and closer until he came right up to the bear, and then he crashed into a tree. Oh, He crawled out of that plane and slid down the tree and saw the bear was waiting there beside the tree. So he jumped out of the bear's back, and then the bear gave Jack a ride right back to the big boulder where Jack had rolled out from under his bed in the first place when he first entered the jungle. Now that Jack was finally safe and he knew how to get back home, he motioned to the bear and said, "Come here, bear. Follow me back under the rock." But the bear wouldn't follow. It was like the bear had found its home and it wanted to stay there in the jungle, even though it had brought Jack back to safety. So Jack said, "Okay, suit yourself." And he crawled back under the boulder and under his bed and back into his bedroom. And he couldn't believe everything he had just seen. And then he felt a hand grab his ankle. And he looked back and couldn't believe who was right there behind him. It was his cousin, Nora. And Nora told Jack everything about how Nora also discovered the exact same jungle by crawling underneath her bed. And she was also exploring the same world when she had seen Jack riding around on that bear. Nora explained everything she had discovered about the jungle too, but still neither one of them knew how it worked or why their beds were connected to this strange world. And so Jack asked Nora, "Are we the only ones who can go into the jungle, or can animals from the jungle come into our rooms too?" And Nora said, "Oh, it goes both ways, Jack. Not only can we go to the jungle, but those animals can come to us too." And right then, they both heard a noise coming from underneath Jack's bed. And it was the sound of a growling, drooling, angry bear who had discovered where they were. But that's a story for another day.